What did your dad go through?
My father had a garden from Liberty Street in Batavia. It extended all the way to Warren Street. I mean, a big garden. And everything was done by hand. He didn't have no rototillers or nothing like that. He did it all by hand. And you get everything away. He never kept anything. You give it all away, but he was always out there. But they told me he sat in that garden. When I went, he said, Dad, John, he said, when you go on them ranges, he said, don't shoot good. He says, miss some targets. I says, yeah, all right, Dad, I will. But, I said, they're going to give a 4-day pass. I better start shooting a little bit better. I did shoot good, and they let me go home for 4 days. And you got to realize, I grew up on the south side of Batavia with all my friends. It was an Italian section. I had the best childhood anybody could ask. I had $1.85 in my pocket. I was the richest kid on the south side, Popsicles were a nickel, And then I get drafted, and I said, oh, my God, I got to go to Vietnam. I heard horror stories about Vietnam. In high school, guys and seniors in high school were seniors. They said, hey, I'll see you in Saigon University and all this stuff, And I'm thinking, I'm not going there. I'm going to college. I ain't going to Vietnam. Yeah. See, my father died when he was 60. I was only home 4 years, and then he had a heart attack while we were hunting, because we were always hunting. I just think that me being over there took years off of his life, you know what I mean?
You had a shot to not go to Vietnam. Can you talk about this, what happened, the conversations with you and your father, and why you did what you did? John Anderson here. I'm the editor of the Batavia Daily News, and I have a special guest in studio with us today, John Marabella. We're putting together our Salute to Veterans edition for Saturday's paper, and we're coming up with some great stories. And one of the best that I've received in years is probably John's firsthand account of Vietnam. We'll get to why you wrote this in a second, but one of the things that you wrote about in this, and I can direct this, is you had 20 people coming at you, and you wound up face to face with one, and you had a shot at a kill, and you didn't. Can you go over what happened that day?
It was my fault in the first place, but as I'm walking back down that trail, kind of running, half running, I know, and I see the elephant grass moving. That's real tall grass that they like to hide in and stuff. And it was moving, and I just stopped, and I flicked my gun off, and I put it on full automatic. And this Viet Cong walked out with an AK-47, and he looked at me, and I was just ready, but he never made a move for his weapon. He just had it on his side, and he just turned around, he looked back at me, and he just walked back where he came from. I says, good, this is 2 in the morning, and I didn't want to fight at night like that. Nobody wants to fight at night. It's terrible. And that was. I thought I would mention that because that doesn't happen a lot, But he must have been sick of fighting, and I surely was. And I was glad that he just turned around and walked away.
The 2 words that you probably dread, even though it was your job, is confirmed kill.
Okay.
What was that like?
Well, I call them confirmed kills, but it was more group kills, okay? That's what they call them. They call them body counts in Vietnam. So if you found bodies, then you get body count. I hate to say this, but sometimes even if you didn't find bodies, you got a body count, okay? That's because that's the way the government works, If we shot so many rounds, and they have to justify all those rounds that we shot, so they give us a body count, found a body.
Once you start getting a body bag out, the war really hits you at that point, doesn't it?
Yes, and you always try to get out of that, But if you get an order, you say you got to wrap this guy up. Nobody wants to do that, And I'm not saying I did it dozens of times, maybe twice, but twice was too many.
Right. What's going through your mind? Are you thinking about the person and who that is?
I'm thinking that, that could be my best friend, or that could even be me, and that's it. I'm done. I'm from a little town in New York, upstate New York, and here I am in this country I don't even know. And I don't even know why we're fighting here, but I was brought up to, honor my country, and that's what I did.
This is a group of guys from all over the country. You guys kind of became best friends in Vietnam, and miraculously, this group all returned alive.
Right.
And since we ran this photo last, you're saying a couple of these guys are no longer with us.
Right.
Who's passed on?
Well, we have this Mervyn Smith, this biggest guy here. He just died 2 days ago. He had liver cancer, and we're thinking it was from Agent Orange, and the doctor thought it definitely could be from Agent Orange, but it's not one of the Agent Orange that the government says it's from. You know what I mean? They got certain cancers. I think there's 8 or 9 that say it was caused by Agent Orange, but the one he had was not. And my other friend got hooked on drugs, and he got hooked on prescription medication when he come home, and he was my best friend there, and he died 3 years ago.
So where's everybody from in this photo? You know, don't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
You
We got the first guy's from Ohio, and then the next guy's from Wisconsin. And this past August, we went to his house in Wisconsin, and he has daughters that are very nice, and they had us at their house, and it was the best trip we've ever had. And of course, Terry, he's from Texas, and he passed away. And then we got a lot of guys are they're really in bad shape. You know, some of them are down and out. Some of them are really sick. We have 3 of them that can't come because they're so sick, and they don't want to leave their doctors. Mm-hmm. And then we got this crazy guy here in the middle there. He's from Michigan. That's Alan Iberson. He was a lot of fun. And then Jeff, my next best buddy here, Jeff Hightower. If you knew Jeff in Vietnam, you never thought he was a religious person, but now he's a pastor. And I don't know how that happened, okay? But he says all the prayers at our thing, and he remembers everybody. And he's a great guy. He calls me all the time. His daughter used to live in Rochester, and he'd come on the throughway, and he says, Batavia. He said, I think I know a guy from Batavia. And he called me, and that's how the whole thing started.
Wow.
with the reunions.
Wow.
Okay. He said, my daughter will find everybody. I said, hope she does. And we got some really good friends, and we call them every time at the reunion. We call them, and everybody talks to them. They just can't make it, you know. And then there's Frank Everingham. He's also from Michigan, and then me, and then my buddy that passed away. I'll tell you, the boys are great. I got my one son's 46. He's my oldest. And then my other son is 43. And my oldest son has one son, Zachary, and he's the light of my life. You know, I love him. He comes over all the time. He drives. We gave him a car. He drives. He's a really good kid. He's a senior this year. Doesn't really know what he wants to do, but he's going to go to GCC, you know, and he'll figure it out, I guess. You know, and he's taking a college course, sociology, and he likes that. And Grandma's helping him typing it for him while he narrates it or whatever he's, you know, and my kids they've been pushing me. They said, Dad, you should write something about that. I said, you know, I don't like to talk about it, you know. I mean, like, I can talk about it if like my friends, these guys, I can talk anything about these guys here, you know, because we were right there together.
Well, your fiance was Betty when you went into the service. You were at Bryan Stratton when you met her.
Right. We wanted to get married when I got out of Bryan and Stratton. She got out at the same time, and our parents, mine and hers, said, no, you can get engaged, you get married when he comes home, because things were bad then, you know, and who knows, you know. So that's what we did. And as soon as we got home, I didn't have to do nothing. And July 4th was the only Saturday open, and that's when we got married, on July 4th, you know. And I had to report to Fort Riley, Kansas for 6 months, you know, and which is fine with me, you know. Well, my wife went with me. Her father says, why don't you just stay home and keep working and let John go, and he'll be home in 6 months. No, I'm going with him. So we went, and I went to report. I reported to the wrong unit, and some clerk there said, you got to go to Custer Hill. He said, they play war games up there. That's where you're going, and they go to Germany for a month. I said, what? War games? I just come back from a war. What do you mean war games? This captain walked out of the back room. He says, you just back from Vietnam? And I said, yes, sir. He said, can you type? I said, yes, sir. He says, wait right here. He says, you're going to be working for me. You're my new legal clerk. I said, okay, yes, sir. You know, and it was a legal clerk, you know.
That's great.
Whatever that was, not doing too much. One day he came in, and he goes, John, he called me John, you know. He said, John, he says, I want you to go to the arsenal, grab a 45 automatic and 2 live magazines full. I says, where am I going? He says, payday. He says, I got a briefcase full of cash. He says, I got to pay everybody cash, and you're going to be right next to me. And if anybody tries to take that briefcase. He says, you got to be there. You know what you got to do. I says, yeah, sure, let's go. He said, you're the only guy I trust here. He said, I know you just come back. He's the only guy I trust with a gun. I said, okay. So then I'm thinking, me and my wife, she's pregnant. A guy told me, he says, hey, I got a 3-month early out. He says, because I have seasonal employment, I cut Christmas trees. I says, Christmas trees? Well, I worked at Batavia Downs, That's seasonal employment. I called my brother and I said, Vinny, I says, can you get the boss to tell him that they need me at Batavia Downs, I said, for seasonal employment? Yeah, John, I'll get it. So he sent me the letter. I took it into the lieutenant, and he goes, these dates aren't right. I said, well, what are the right dates? And he told me, called my brother-in-law back. He said, I need another letter, Vinny. I said, I need another letter, and date's got to be on it. So he sent me the letter. I took it into the guy. He said, you're getting out in 18 days. I says, thank you. I got a 3-month early out. So
Wow.
That was cool.
Wow. So how, Betty, in 47 years of marriage?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Your story's amazing.
You're
but
probably wondering why I
47
put up with her for that. Why she put up with me all that time. I know.
47 years.
Yeah, 47
that's
years.
impressive.
I mean, we travel, we do everything together, and she lets me hunt and she lets me play cards and whatever I want to do, And when she wants to go somewhere, I go with her.
Looking at the story, you wrote, and as I think about your parents and the legacy that you continued from your parents,
Right.
I know you were a corrections officer, but beyond that, I think, learning from your parents, being married to Betty for 47 years, having the children, having grandkids, and of course, what you did for our country and your service to our country, to me, that's more important than anything you did. So I'm very proud to have you here. I'm proud that we're going to be able to bring your story to our readers on Saturday. And so, John Marabella, thank you, my friend, for coming in. This was outstanding.
Thank you.